Hello and good afternoon. Welcome to Follow Everton. I have a wonderful friend of mine and colleague, Aussie Chris, all the way from Arizona. How are you, Chris?
hmm I'm doing good. Soon enough, I will actually become an Australian-based Chris again. I'm I've kept Aussie Chris at this point after Chris, what was his Coleman, the previous American. So I didn't want to say American Chris, and people get confused with the previous Chris that was on here. So I kept with Aussie. But yeah, I'm going to be relocating back to Australia here in August, September time. So you'll see this studio set up, and then all of a sudden you won't see a wall. You'll see me off a laptop, quite likely calling in from various spots in Europe on Airbnb, doing some match reactions, and then get a more suitable setup come November. But
So what we're trying to say is
it's
it's going to be a complete and utter shambles until the end of September, start of October. And then are we going to be treated to a wonderful studio setup at your new home or your parents' house or wherever you're residing?
I'm sure I'll find a way, right? Worst case, I can be in Aussie Adams backdrop and have multiple Tim Cahill books, and we'll just sit there like a podcast. We'll sit there walking side by side with a little table in the middle, and we'll ask questions to one another and get some feedback that way. But
Well, that'd be great. And obviously, Adam, you've seen him on a couple of streams. He's going to be helping out Chris. We hope so that they can put some content out on their time zone, which you can watch back probably the morning after, which is going to be really exciting. But we hope Chris is still going to be very involved on our time zone as well. Please do let us know in the comments if there's any problems with the stream today, and we'll blame the Tory party who lost last night. They seem to be getting the blame for a lot of things. But if it's holding up well for you, Chris, we're happy to continue. But if anyone's not particularly impressed with either the sound of myself or Chris, please do alert us now, and we can try and address that before we get too heavily deep into the latest news, which is absolutely bugger all. So what we're going to do, we're just going to reflect on a few of the things that have happened and just look ahead to preseason starting. What do we need to work on in those first few weeks of preseason? So Everton return back to Finch Farm on Monday, and then we'll very swiftly be into action in some fantastic fixtures against the likes of Sligo Rovers, Preston North End, and Salford City. How absolutely riveting. There were some rumours this morning, however, that Everton were due to play Roma, the Italian club, also owned by Everton's new prospective owner, Dan Friedkin. But Aussie Chris, and some Australian slang for us, please. How can you describe that rumour?
That we go to Roma. Well, it's not happening. Doesn't sound like, but it'd be honestly like it's going to be a more entertaining match no matter what than watching Championship. Is Salford League One? I'm trying to remember. They don't think they're Championship, right? But it's like, let's get out of England for a little bit and get some international
I don't even
matches going on. I think that would be way better. Yeah, but they're not Championship, I don't think. But when you're talking about,
I don't think they're any. I don't think they're. I don't think there's either.
League Two.
I think they're League Two.
Well,
and are we playing Bury or Salford?
I
think it's Salford.
Yeah. Well, to put it frank, I don't want to swear on the channel, but if I wanted to use Aussie slang, I'd be very careful on what to search on Urban Dictionary. Let's put it this way. Roma would be an improvement for the spectators to watch a higher quality match. But the reality, Ryan, as you're saying, playing high status opposition doesn't mean that they're putting out their best squad. They could bring out reserves, or people aren't having a good day, but it does give them a fun opportunity for a bigger club fan base to have an excuse to go travel to Rome, for example, or for them to come to Liverpool.
Well, the thought was that they would actually come to Goodison Park, but that is a load of rubbish. Someone's just made that up, unless it's one of those rumors that turns out to be true. The big
That's
news,
how rumors work.
The big news is that Everton did make a signing. I discussed this 10 days ago or so on a stream, so I didn't react to it because I thought I was just repeating myself. Unfortunately, with the way the times aligned and with work commitments, we weren't able to react to the news as it broke that he did confirm, and this was that Iliman and Jai, that. I've heard a few commentators say Njai. I've seen others saying Ndiaye. Has signed for Everton in a £15 million deal. Aussie Chris, number 10 slot. This midfielder, bit of a flop for Marseille, his boyhood club, but this previous season for Sheffield United, he was arguably the best player in the Championship. What are your thoughts?
So, putting too much expectation on a £15 million signing with the inflated costs that we get for players, I don't think is fair. What I think is fair to say, though, we need to shake up the front line. DCL had his moments, and then he really didn't have a moment in the sun during that losing streak. Beto was had a lot of heart and effort, but was unreliable. And anytime we were trying to break down a squad, we couldn't do it. Like, honestly, we basically needed to play like we did against Brighton back in when we won at the Amex a year and a half ago now, where someone needs to come on to us and we take them on, or we rely on long ball. So it would be really interesting. And I did bring up a little stat for this, Ryan. It's courtesy of The Athletic. But Illiman and Ndiaye against Abdoulaye Doucouré here, looking at some statistics. So The Athletic put it together using Smarter Scouts information, where they broke down how they play in their midfield spots when they're both in the number 10. So in an attacking role, which is flagged in blue, you've got a few stats there that were basically, think of it a bit like FIFA, where 0 is the worst, 100 is the best possible. According to their metrics, Doucouré in the attacking positions didn't really go above average really in any category. They said XG from shot creation. So basically once you're going forward and taking strikes, what happens? How about XG from ball progression, or basically not overwhelming in any category? The difference there from Illiman and Ndiaye, and how to pronounce it, I probably need to go into FIFA to hear what they say officially on a game channel, and then that's the OG, you know. So the receptions in the opposition box, that's, I think, a really big one for holding the ball in an attacking position and shot volume at 62% per metric of 50 for Ndiaye. So do we have someone who can create a lot of shots instead of, maybe I'll shoot, block, but it counts as XG? I don't want any of that. I want someone who shoots early, has a lot of volume of opportunities, and is able to hold the ball in the box so we don't just give it away in the final third. So those categories look quite interesting to me. Now, Doucouré is definitely beating him out, is in that, hey, could you play deeper and play more of a defensive position? If Dyche wants your number 10 to be a 4-5-1 out of possession, Doucouré wins in almost every category. Defensive intensity, impact, winning the ball in the air. He's not, I don't think Ndiaye is terrible, but he's not the size of Doucouré.
Well, is that down to the way they play and the way that Marseille play and the way Everton play, or is that more?
There's a very good chance that is a component as well. But if you were going to tell me what is the aerial ability of Ndiaye versus Doucouré is quite a physical presence in the midfield, so you'd expect he will. Maybe it's a closer than what you're seeing here, because yes, it's 4 different managers in one season over there in Marseille against a steady Dyche. Maybe that's the difference there. But generally speaking, Doucouré is far more capable of dropping into the 6, and Ndiaye is not going to be able to be in one of those 2 midfield slots. Maybe goes out wide, but he wasn't very effective there. So you'd rather him as a 10, but maybe that's changing looks between McNeil, Harrison, and Ndiaye. They'll kind of supporting front 3.
Yeah, some very interesting points there, Chris. I'm looking at the statistics, and what I take from that, really, the defensive contribution from Doucouré, for me, has to be more to the fact that he is playing and told to do it in that certain way, almost like a defensive number 10 at times. So I'm not going to read too much into the defensive stats for now. What I will focus in on is the offensive contribution. And it's quite clear Doucouré links up very well with his teammates and forwards, but seems to lag in all the other key metrics, especially the ball retention one. He gives the ball away. I need a really good analogy there, but I don't have one off the tip of the tongue. Gives the ball away more than me in a 5-a-side match. I'm terrible. No, I'm only joking. 12. I mean, that's a shocking stat. So there's a massive upgrade there, and in Iliman and Dyer, and what that means, Chris, is focusing on the ball retention aspect. We're going to be better on the ball, better in possession, hold on to the ball longer, into the points where we can actually break teams down. And he's a player with 2 feet, can retain the ball in tight areas, and whereas Doucouré kind of often you'll see him panic and kind of just pass it to no one. So that's a massive bonus, isn't it?
Yeah. No, so like that 92% link up volume, we're talking about the influence of Dyche. Doucouré is meant to be that focal point. He either is presenting kind of as that false 9 where he's coming, receiving the ball, or he's touching forward. So he has 92%, but then the second he gets the ball, we get really annoyed that he gives the ball away a lot. But then he's basically the focal point of all these opportunities. And I was trying to think of the right. Basically, if you're trying to hold mashed potatoes in your hands, right, and you've got it all there, but it slips through the cracks, and you lose opportunities because it's all there. The intention was good, but the execution is inconsistent from Doucouré. But it's always potential that you have to strike lightning with him rather than you trust that he'll do it every time.
He would say, though, in his defense, that he's not a number 10, and that's why Dyche has gone and done this. But does Doucouré really then see himself playing as a number 8? And is he better than the 2 number 8s we've got in, the 3 options? And I really do hope we can keep Amadou Onana. So, is Doucouré going to go in one of those 3 or 2 defensive midfield spots? Another aspect with the Ndiaye transfer is that we've given him a 5-year contract. We don't tend to dish out contracts of that length anymore. I get there will be an element of amortization and trying to spread the fees over the lifetime of those 5 years rather than over, say, a 3-year deal. But that's a big risk, Chris, isn't it? This is a player who's only really done anything in the Championship. He is regarded as one of the best players in the Championship that season before last. But 5-year contract for someone unproven, is this a good thing, or are you happy to see Everton take a risk and hopefully be rewarded, or do you think this is something that we should have been more cautious with?
Oh, that's a good question. I'm not 100% sure, Ryan, on the wages Ndiaye will be getting, but if the wages are reasonable, we want someone young who seems like a squad player that it's all about development and a coaching opportunity that we can have in our squad for the next 5 years. Because in all honesty, this is the start of a new look Everton. The new look Everton is anyone wearing that new pale yellow squad shirt on the official release. So we have.
I want to buy it. Where is it? Come on, you bugger.
Yeah, you bugger. All right, so the pale yellow, straw yellow, it's a unique color of yellow, irrespective of my opinion of colors. So that color of yellow, that's the new look Everton. Any one of these, we're talking about people that break through the lines. Maybe Ndiaye is that squad player that can be quite adaptable. He wasn't overwhelming, pulling up trees in terms of scoring goals. And we know that, okay, if DCL isn't scoring, then you've got 4 other key positions you need to rely on, the 2 wings and the number 10, and hopefully get some contributions off corners and set plays from time to time from Branthwaite and Tarkovsky. So is Ndiaye going to do that? It doesn't look like it. So maybe we're better at scoring because we have better build-up play in the final third when they're in possession, but it's hard to say. Maybe we're better now if Doucouré plays deeper and Ndiaye plays with the DCL in that 4-4-2 out of possession press, winning the ball back and holding the ball up to set up the likes of a Jack Harrison playing on his left side, who can tuck in and shoot better on his right than McNeil. Not sure, but that's kind of where I'm seeing it, that Ndiaye maybe is at least a different option. And I think Duggan probably brings it up correctly, that Doucouré's legs are going to be gone by next season, either by next season or if we're relying on him as the only creative player and outlet. He gets the ball 92% of the time, but doesn't do much with it. But when he does, it's fantastic. And we've seen that he kept Everton up with that strike against Bournemouth, and he was really impactful in the build-up there in that number 10 slot. And in next season, but once he was injured, he was trying to come back and he was out of form, but he looked really sore. So what we really don't want to do, and every year Ramadan comes around, we have a lot of players quite fatigued and we don't have squad depth. We want to have a variety of players so we are not forced to bring someone that's looking leggy in our front line. We had that actually almost all of last year, didn't we? We had Doucouré, we had Jack Harrison and McNeil, who weren't allowed to take a day off. They looked like they were desperately asking for one, other than, well, if you're off the pitch, you're not getting a game again because you're out of the squad. Outside of that piece, we need variety. Maybe you come in as a sub. That's kind of, I think, where we're at. We need some squad depth. We're lacking creativity. We have energy now in Beto. We have energy in with Yusuf Chamisi. But now let's see, do we have finished product? There's no guarantee, but I would rather have lower cost players on a sustainable contract. They're probably going to be cheaper than having Mason Holgate in the books, right? Like,
Yeah.
I'd rather have that as someone new with optimism rather than get him off our books. We've got Holgate. Keane's, I think, a little bit more reliable than Holgate at this point, but and he can still shoot. And we have Mope, who's an interesting character, but not as an Everton fan. He doesn't want to come back. So we've got some of these players in the books, but it's
we'll
not as much
talk
as it
about
used to
that
be.
in a moment. Actually, we'll just be ahead of the preseason. We'll see what we still need to do. Thanks for that. Obviously, we think he's going to be a good signing. We wish him well. We think he offers a different option, and I just want to, reinforce what Chris has said, that your defense, ideally, you want to keep a settled back four. Your midfield, you can understand some rotation in there on occasion, but generally you would also want to keep that settled. But in those front positions, you need options. You can't rely on individuals. The forward positions tend to be the ones where the form is more volatile, and therefore you need to have options out wide. You need to have options in the number 10 slot. And I think, although the number 10 in a lot of teams and a lot of leagues is completely outdated for some, Everton are playing that number 10. And I imagine Njai is going to play very, very close to the striker, but have that defensive discipline. You just froze then. You've been in and out a little bit, actually.
Yeah.
We won't go there.
We'll
just make it away for this bloody stream. But, you need to have options, and I'm pleased to see that Everton have taken steps to do that with someone who clearly is very good at dribbling, taking the ball in tight spaces and finishing, making goals, and is versatile and works hard. So, he seems to tick every box. Isn't proven yet, but we'll see if he's up to scratch very soon. Follow Everton, of course. Would also like to apologise for the use of any vulgar language that was used previously by myself. So Everton are playing, come back preseason next week. There's still quite a lot to do. The Euros have effectively finished for Everton's players, apart from Jordan Pickford, who's expected, and I say that with underline, expected to go to the final of the Euros. England are the favourites on the group, on their side, of the draw. That said, Switzerland are going to be very challenging, but what this does mean is that Vitaly Mikalenko and Amadou Onana are back at Everton. They are likely on a short holiday before returning to pre-season. Will Onana come back to pre-season? I'm not 100% sure. Will be interesting to see. But there's still plenty of work to do, Chris. You'd say defensively last season we were outstanding. It is about improving, maintaining those standards, and then improving the attacking options. A lot of that, as we've discussed, is personnel. So how important is it now we can bring in the players that we need, and which are the key areas, if you were to prioritize 2 signings now, or which areas would you be desperate for us to reinforce?
So I'll mention who I think. So whoever we reinforce, we have our current need, and then we have the current need. The second, a couple players who are linked to leave, actually go through with it. I think DCL is very likely to go to Newcastle. It keeps coming back up and staring its ugly head. So I think that we are likely to need someone different than DCL, but we don't want to pull the trigger until that happens. So I'll put that as one caveat. And I think we can just about get by if Onana leaves, but I think we need one more in that position. But right now, I think there are 2 things. What I would like is that the backup step back to the current pairing of Tarkovsky and Branthwaite to be someone other than Michael Keane. Preferably left-footed, so that if some incredible offer comes in for Jared Branthwaite, that we're willing to let him go for his own development benefit and his own personal interest in our finances, we are not scrambling last minute. But I preferably would like someone as a fill-in there who's comfortable on that left side to jump into the Vitaly Mikalenko spot, assuming his injury from that when he landed funny from his he went up for the header against Liverpool. He's recovered now, but you don't want to have Ashley Young as your you do not want him on the squad. You'd like him as a mentor and a professional development coach in the squad on low wages if we need to have him, and we have him. So I do not want Ashley Young in that squad. Sorry?
Would you prefer to have a left back then who can play at centre half?
Yeah.
Or a centre half who can play at left
centre
back?
half. Right, because I think it's more likely that you have a centre half that plays that position okay as a left back, that doesn't bomb on forward, and then you have some comfort there. Yes, you say I want to bet left back, but I would rather have a centre back that can play left back than a left back that doesn't get much game time. And
so
on the right side, I think we need.
He's not going to get in anyway, whoever comes in at centre-back, if Tarkowski and Branthwaite are there, if they maintain those standards. But is that your pick of the bunch on the backup centre-back? Is that your priority at the moment?
So there's two, but I'm trying to figure out which of the two I would prefer. That's the challenge.
Well, you
the
have
other
two.
is
You
right
have two
back.
positions.
Coleman.
Okay. So we've just harped on about how we need
been
options on the wing.
Well, part of the wing challenge is if the fullback is not supported defensively, then we blame the fullback. And if the winger isn't looking very creative, we lack an overlapping interaction on both wings. So the wing is very limited on trying to break through the line because the fullback only has to pay attention to one player, an underlap or an overlap. So unless Patterson is given the game time, which I don't see happening based on the current dynamic between him and Daesh, we need someone different and we need to sell Patterson. And Coleman is the backup.
I agree with you,
actually. I'm not 100% sure.
I agree with you on two of those. It would be a disaster if Michael Keane it would be a disaster if Tarkowski or Branthwaite were injured, or God forbid both, and the backup centre halves are Michael Keane and Mason Holgate. It is literally like the ghosts of Christmas past. It is.
Yeah. The expression that you're in sixes and
it's 2024, and we're talking about potentially Mason Holgate and Michael Keane being the two centre halves. Give me strength, my lord. Play to whatever God you believe in, because that cannot happen. And it's just the wages are the issue with there. That's why they've not moved on. We definitely need a backup centre back. I would love Everton to start being clever in the market now. We're back at pre-season. Let's move on Nathan Patterson. This is a bold call on a permanent deal. Let's move on. I didn't want Ashley Young at all, for God's sake. But we've sold Ben Godfrey. That was the other one I wanted us to kind of shift to free up some money to then go and buy a right back who's going to start. Coleman is backup right back. Young is backup left back. And we have a first choice right back. And it's not Nathan Patterson. We need to accept that. Sean Dyche doesn't rate him. He can't defend as well as other defenders can. He's okay going forward, but a little bit lightweight and sort of underdeveloped in so many ways to his game that I just can't see it. So I want a right back. And I desperately want a right midfielder. Jack Harrison for me last season made me want to stick pins in my eyes. He'd cut inside and sky it over. He'd cut inside and overhit the cross. He'd cut inside and have two people stood in front of him, and he'd do some hectic thing and just about retain the ball. I can't remember him actually 1v1 beating a man with skill or pace, putting a fantastic ball in for someone to score, or beating someone, going on a great run and scoring. He scored a couple of tap-ins.
It wasn't common.
He pressed a little bit. And this is why we need wingers, because we need someone who can replace Dwight McNeil when he's off form, which inevitably happens. You're a forward player, you have form. You need options. We've always had options. You need a squad, and we haven't got that. We're very top heavy with central midfielders and right backs. We now seem light with reliable centre halves, very light at left back, very light. We've got quite a few strikers, although I do think Chimiti's going to go on loan. Neil Mopey has absolutely got rid of. He's an absolute troll. And we've got to invest. So Mopey to go, Patterson to go, Holgate to go, and then a right back, centre back, and a right mid, please, and we'll be okay. That's what I want to see. What are a couple of things that you want to see Everton work on in pre-season in terms of with the personnel that they've got? Just before I let you go.
Yeah. So let's go with the first thing is to continue how do we maintain the intensity and willingness to grind out results that we did at the end of last season, and being able to at minimum be able to capture the way we played in that scenario. It wasn't always pretty, but we found little ways to manufacture wins. So the new players coming into the squad, which will be Tim and Illiman, how do we make sure that they understand that the defensive strategy and at least be able to replicate what we did at the end of last season? That's not the way you can up the game book, but there's no way Daesh is going to do that. So we need to make sure that we can. The best form of Daesh is what we got at the end of last season, at least for what we've seen so far. So if we can replicate that again with these new players, that's really huge. The other piece of it is, okay, now that we are not relegation at the beginning of the season due to a points deduction, we're basically a 12th, 13th place squad. Take that out. There are going to be a lot of teams that play back at Goodison Park, and we could not break anyone down unless we got lucky with the DCL keeper clearance and scenarios like that against Burnley. So how do we, if they say, come at me, bro, I'm going to give you the ball, 10 at the, all the men behind the ball playing that park the bus mentality, try and nick a goal. How do we break them down? What strategy do we need to have the fullbacks and the central midfielders know how to move around and break up that low block? Because we were stationary when players get into their position. They've done their job, and we were not able to come up with creative movement to open up defenses. So I think a lot of simulation where you've got incredibly good defensive tactics, which will win out against our attackers when they play simulations on attack versus defense. So how do we utilize our defensive knowledge to share with the strike force, hey, this is what would make me uncomfortable in this scenario. How would you break me down? Tell me, Branthwaite, what don't you like? When I fell over against
Tell me, Young.
What was it that made
Tell
it
me,
happen?
Ashley Young.
Tell me your
what
weaknesses.
do you like? Ashley Young.
Well, Ashley Young should not be the one that gives
advice.
I
seem to struggle. My Ashley Young, thank you for asking me. I seem to struggle with pace. I seem to struggle with 1v1. I seem to struggle with crossing. I seem to struggle with shooting and free kicks. Awareness defensively, giving away rash tackles, rash fouls, and yellow cards. But yeah, apart from that, I'm a really good defender. I've completely made a mockery of your point, but I understand what you're saying. Working on those things.
Well, that's scenario. Yeah, but Patterson against Young isn't the scenario we're talking about. We want the likes of a pick.
Oh my God, he's completely froze with his head down. Gotta get a picture of this. This is to be expected. Oh, he's back. we need to start a GoFundMe for Chris's computer, because Chris, you went like this.
Amazing. It's on the books. It's just with all my flights and moving costs and everything else, it's on my agenda. It's just not the first item. But this laptop is about a decade old, so it does lag out. So apologies, everyone.
On that bombshell, I think we're going to wrap things up. Chris, thank you for joining me. Have you got anything else you want to touch on just before we go?
No, I think everyone stand pat and wait to hear back the newest information. Not every day is an exciting day at Everton, and in a way, I'm kind of glad we're finally getting that international break energy that we've been looking for a while. All I want is no Goodison news or Football Insider gossip trying to scare me that Dan Friedkin is not the owner of Everton Football Club and all these kind of things. There's always something out there, you know. So what we know is that we have we're planning for the future, who we're looking at, we're asking the right things. We have a squad in place early this year. So that now at least we have time to prepare. We're in a stabler position. We still don't know about FFP. Were we in trouble? And there's still investigation going on from last year. Did we pass financially by the 1st of July? We're not going to hear back for a while. So we can rest on our laurels and put our head in the sand until we hear news a little ways away. But for right now, I'm thinking quite positive. It's also probably 5 months to the state rebuilt, Ryan, which is really exciting.
Yeah, very, very exciting. I think there will be more signings. I think it's positive we've made the signings we've made, even if we don't know a lot about Tim Origabunum. And he was one of the best players in the championship, I've been told as well. So there seems to be a clear strategy there to get players who are on lesser wages, who haven't quite cut it at the top level as of yet, but are going to. So it's exciting from Everton to do that, and you can see that with the links to the Hull City winger and the Hull City centre back. So we're on the same page. I think we'll get the job done. I feel like the likes of Neil Mopay and Mason Holgate will leave on deadline day on loan. We'll be paying most of their wages, but let's stay positive about other things. I think Everton fans had no expectation coming into this summer about signings. We didn't expect us to sign anyone really, or a lot of players. So I think the main thing for me was that we've held Jared Branthwaite up till now, and that's reassuring. And I hope we managed to keep him. And we'll bring you the latest news when there's more to talk about, because we're clutching at straws today. But we talked about the new Everton signing, and that Everton will be back at preseason on Monday.
We're not in flash in red, Ryan. We're only in amber. We're not in green. We don't have financial plush yet, but we are in a steady amber state. So we're okay, but we're not going to go cavalier and spend like crazy yet. We need to slowly but surely rebuild the squad, and that doesn't happen overnight.
Absolutely. Make sure, as always, you like the video, and of course subscribe if you're watching over on X. Come over to YouTube, type in youtube.com/follow Everton and click the subscribe button. Make sure you turn the notification bell on. Costs absolutely nothing, and VIP members can get a fancy badge next to their name, and you can click join to do that. We're near 2,750 subscribers, so go on, give us a subscribe. We're aiming for 3K before the end of the year. We'll easily hit that target, but go on, guys. Wiggle that little finger. You know you want to. Do the X like you did yesterday in those polls.
I think I should subscribe.